Ryan Mitchell stood in the observation window of the Galactic Alliance station, looking out at the vast expanse of space, where Earth lay somewhere far below in the darkness. The sun caught the edge of a Valorian warship as it glided past, its sleek metallic hull reflecting light like polished silver 3 months ago. Humanity had made first contact with an advanced civilization, and now here he was, humanity's chief diplomat, standing aboard a space station that most people on Earth did not even know existed. He turned away from the window and walked down the long corridor toward the diplomatic meeting room. His shoes made quiet sounds against the metal floor as he moved through the station's halls. Ryan was tall and lean, with dark hair and sharp features that made him look older than his 34 years. He carried himself with confidence, but inside he felt the weight of responsibility that came with this position. The fate of 2 species might depend on how well he could communicate with the Valorian Shin. He entered the meeting room. Commander Kira was already there. She stood near the far wall, her posture perfectly straight. Her presence, commanding the entire space. Kira was beautiful in a way that seemed almost impossible, with silver skin that seemed to shimmer under the station's lights and eyes that were a deep blue like the ocean on Earth. Her dark hair fell down her back in a long braid, woven with small metallic threads that glinted as she moved. She wore the uniform of a high-ranking Valorian military officer, decorated with medals and insignia that marked her status and authority. Kira had been assigned as the liaison between the Valorian High Council and humanity, and she was one of the most respected commanders in their entire military. She represented everything that made the Valorians impressive and advanced. When she looked at Ryan, her expression was calm and professional, but there was something in her eyes that suggested she had thoughts and emotions beyond what she showed on the surface. Ryan approached her and bowed slightly, a gesture he had learned was respectful in Valorian culture. "Commander, it is good to see you again," he said. Kira nodded in acknowledgement. "The feeling is mutual." Diplomat Mitchell, we have much to discuss today regarding the trade agreements between our people. They spent the next several hours going through documents and discussing the terms that would allow for commerce and cultural exchange between Earth and the Valorian Empire. Ryan found himself impressed by Kira's intelligence and her willingness to make fair deals. She was not greedy or unreasonable. She seemed to genuinely want to build a strong partnership between their species. As the sun set outside the station, casting long shadows across the meeting room, Kira stood and walked toward the large window. She looked out at the stars and spoke without turning to face Ryan. "Your people are remarkable," she said, her voice quiet and thoughtful. "We have studied humanity for some time before making contact, and I must admit that we expected far less sophistication than what we have found." "Thank you," said Ryan, who now stood beside her at the window. "We are always trying to improve ourselves and learn from others." Kira turned to face him, and her expression had changed slightly. "There is something I must discuss with you. Though it is not a matter of official policy, it is a matter of culture and tradition." Ryan felt his heart rate increase slightly. "Of course," he said. "What is it?" Kira paused, choosing her words carefully. "In our culture, when a strong alliance is formed between important figures from different groups, it is customary to seal that bond with a personal connection among the Valorians. The highest honor a woman can give to someone she respects is to offer him the companionship of a woman from her own circle. This ensures that the bonds between the two peoples become personal as well as political." She paused again, and Ryan waited, understanding that this was leading somewhere significant. "What I mean to say is that I would like to formally offer you the choice of any woman from my circle of companions. Any of them would be honored to spend time with you and help cement the relationship between your species and mine." Ryan was completely surprised by this offer. He had read about Valorian customs But he had not expected something so direct and personal. His mind raced with the implications among his people. Such an offer would be considered extremely forward and unusual, but he understood that the Valorians were different, and that this gesture came from a place of respect and diplomatic intention. He looked at Kira and saw that she was waiting for his response. She seemed confident that he would accept the offer, and he could see her beginning to think about which of her companions she might suggest. "I appreciate your offer very much," Ryan said carefully, choosing his words as thoughtfully as Kira had chosen hers. "It's an honor to receive such a gesture from someone of your rank and status." Kira smiled slightly, and Ryan continued, "I would like to think carefully about this decision, as it is not something I take lightly, of course." She replied, "We will discuss this further in our next meeting. In our culture, such choices should not be rushed. They must come from genuine appreciation and respect." Ryan left the meeting room that evening and made his way back to his quarters. He could not stop thinking about what Kira had said. He understood the political importance of what she was offering by accepting a companion from her circle. He would be strengthening the human-Valorian alliance in a way that went beyond treaties and agreements. But as he thought about the beautiful women he had seen in Kira's group, his mind kept returning to Kira herself. He could not explain it, but he found himself drawn to her intelligence, her strength, and the way she looked at him with those deep blue eyes. There was something about her that made him feel as though she understood him in a way that others did not. That night, Ryan sat in his quarters and looked out at the stars. He knew that the decision he was about to make could change everything, but for the first time since arriving at the station, he felt certain about what he wanted to do. The question was whether he would have the courage to say it aloud when the moment came. The grand hall of the Galactic Alliance station was decorated with lights and flowers, many of which Ryan did not recognize from any planet he knew. Air smelled of exotic spices and fresh vegetation. Long tables were arranged in careful rows, and the seats were filled with both Valorian officials and human delegates. This was the formal celebration dinner, held to mark 1 month of successful negotiations and peaceful cooperation between the two species. Ryan wore a dark suit that had been tailored for him on the station, while the Valorians dressed in flowing garments that seemed to be made of material that shifted color slightly in the light. Kira sat at the head table. As befitted her rank and position, she looked more beautiful than ever, her silver skin glowing softly under the carefully arranged lighting. Her dress was deep blue, matching her eyes, and it was decorated with silver embroidery that seemed to trace patterns of stars and galaxies. Ryan noticed that her gaze kept finding him across the room, and each time it did, he felt his heart rate increase. He had spent the past month thinking about little else besides the choice he needed to make. The meal progressed through several courses, each one more elaborate than the last. Servers moved through the crowd with trays of food and beverages. Conversations happened in low tones throughout the hall, and there was a sense of celebration and hope for the future. When the meal ended, Kira stood and moved to a raised platform at the front of the hall. Noise of the room gradually quieted as people realized that something formal was about to happen. Ryan straightened in his seat, knowing that this was the moment he had been waiting for. Commander Kira looked out at the assembled crowd and began to speak. She spoke first in the Valorian language, and then in English for the benefit of the human delegates. "Today marks a turning point in the history of both our civilizations," she said. "For the first time, two species from different worlds have come together, not as conquerors or conquered, but as partners. We have shown that it is possible to bridge the gap between worlds and create something meaningful and lasting." She paused and looked directly at Ryan's. "I mentioned to our human diplomat several weeks ago I wish to offer a formal gesture of respect and alliance. I told him that he might choose any companion from my circle of women, and that such a choice would honor both our species. It is with great pride that I now ask him to share with all of us what decision he has made." The hall fell, Completely silent, Ryan could feel the eyes of everyone in the room turning toward him. He stood slowly, taking a deep breath. He had known this moment was coming, and he had prepared himself. But now that it was here, he felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He walked toward the platform where Kira stood. Human delegates watched with curiosity. The Valorian officials leaned forward, expecting him to name one of the beautiful women seated at the tables. Kira herself stood with perfect composure, but Ryan could see a slight question in her eyes, as if she was wondering what he would say. When Ryan reached the platform, he turned to face the entire room. I have thought carefully about the great honor that Commander Kira has offered to me. He said, I have considered this decision with the seriousness it deserves, because I understand what it means for both our peoples. The women in Commander Kira's circle are all remarkable, intelligent, and beautiful. Any of them would be an outstanding choice. But when I think about what this choice really means, I find that my answer is clear. Ryan paused and looked directly at Kira. I choose you, Commander. The room erupted in gasps and shocked murmurs. Several Valorian officials stood from their seats. Kira's expression did not change, but Ryan saw something flicker in her eyes. Something that might have been surprise or might have been something deeper. Ryan continued speaking, wanting to explain himself before the situation became too chaotic. I do not make this choice based on appearance alone, though I must say that you are the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. I make this choice because of who you are as a person. You are intelligent, strong, and courageous. You were willing to look beyond the prejudices of your own people and see the potential in mine. You have spent the past month working with me, and I have come to respect you in a way that I have never respected anyone else. When I think about who I want to spend my life learning about, it is you. Kira finally moved. She stepped down from the platform and approached Ryan. Her face was unreadable, but when she spoke, her voice was soft. What you are suggesting violates every protocol of Valorian society. She said, I am a commander, far above your rank. My position alone makes this impossible. But even as she said this, she did not walk away. Ryan looked into her eyes. I understand that. He said, I understand that I am asking for something that goes against everything your culture teaches, but sometimes the greatest achievements in history come from people who are willing to defy what is expected of them. I am not asking for this because of your rank or your position. I am asking for it because I love who you are. The second time he said the word love, Kira's eyes widened. She looked around the room at all the shocked faces, at the Valorian officials who were clearly furious, at the human delegates who were uncertain whether to be amazed or concerned. She turned back to Ryan and took his hand. What you have done here will have consequences, she said, but perhaps those consequences are necessary. Perhaps we need to show that love and respect can overcome protocol and hierarchy. She squeezed his hand gently. If you are willing to face whatever comes next, then I am willing to face it with you. News of Ryan's declaration spread through the station and across both worlds, faster than anyone could have anticipated. Within hours, the Valorian High Council had issued an official statement denouncing the claim as offensive and inappropriate. Within a full day, the human government on Earth had called for a full investigation into whether Ryan had acted in his official capacity or had overstepped his authority. The celebration dinner had turned into chaos within minutes of Ryan and Kira holding hands. Valorian officials had demanded explanations. Human officials had pulled Ryan aside to ask what he was thinking. Security had been called to manage the crowd by the next morning. The diplomatic station felt like a place divided against itself. The human delegation and the Valorian delegation ate in separate areas. What had been a hopeful moment of friendship now felt tense and filled with conflict. Ryan spent most of the first day being questioned by human officials. They wanted to know why he had made this choice. They wanted to know if he understood the political implications They wanted to know if he was prepared for the consequences by evening. A message came from Earth stating that Ryan's diplomatic credentials were being reviewed. The message suggested that his actions might be seen as a personal matter rather than an official diplomatic function, which meant that he might not be protected by diplomatic immunity. Ryan sat in his quarters, feeling the weight of what he had done. But even as the walls seemed to close in around him, he thought about Kira, and he knew he had made the right choice. Meanwhile, Kira was facing pressure from an entirely different direction. The Valorian High Council had summoned her to a formal hearing. She stood before 17 members of the council, all of them looking at her with expressions ranging from anger to disappointment. A commander of her rank and experience was expected to uphold Valorian values and traditions. The fact that she had allowed a lower-ranked species member to make such a claim was considered not just inappropriate, but potentially damaging to the entire Valorian society. You are a disgrace to your position and your people, the head council member said. To hear a woman of your rank accepting the advances of someone beneath your station diminishes all of us. We should end this alliance with humanity immediately and restore order to our civilization. Kira stood perfectly still, her expression controlled with respect. Sir, she said, Ryan made his choice based on something deeper than station or rank. He chose based on respect and what he called love. That is not a weakness in human culture. That may be where their strength lies. The council members murmured among themselves. Another council member spoke up. You are suggesting that we should celebrate this violation of our customs. That is not only foolish, it is dangerous. What message does this send to the rest of our people? Kira took a breath. It sends the message that we are strong enough to accept new ideas, that we are advanced enough to look beyond our traditions when something greater is at stake. The hearing ended with no resolution. The council issued orders that Kira was to have no further contact with Ryan until the matter was fully investigated. She was also forbidden from leaving the station, effectively placing her under house arrest. But the council did not want to completely break the alliance with humanity, as they depended on it for resources and military strengths. So instead, they announced that they would conduct a formal investigation into whether Ryan had acted as an official representative or as a private individual. It was a way to delay making a final decision. Ryan and Kira found ways to communicate in secret. Messages were left in empty corridors. They would pass by each other in the station's common areas and exchange glances that carried entire conversations. Once, Ryan managed to slip into a maintenance area where Kira was waiting, and they had 10 precious minutes to talk without surveillance. How long can we do this? Kira asked. How long can we keep running? Ryan took her hands. Not long, he admitted, but I need you to know that I meant every word I said at that dinner. I did not say those things because of politics or strategy. I said them because they are true. Kira squeezed his hands. I believe you, she said, and I need you to know that I am facing pressure from my own government. They want me to denounce you publicly. They want me to say that I was confused or manipulated by human culture. If I do this, everything will go back to normal. The alliance will be restored. We will never see each other again. But if I do not do this, there will be consequences for both of us. Ryan pulled her close. What do you want to do? He asked. Kira looked up at him. I want to be with you, she said. I know that this is complicated and difficult. I know that my people are angry and your people are uncertain. But when I look at you, I see someone who is willing to risk everything for what he believes in. He sees someone who values truth and love more than safety and comfort. That is not something I find in many people from any species. In that moment, with just days before the official hearing, Ryan and Kira made a decision. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. They would not hide from their choice. They would not deny what they felt, and If their love for each other could somehow bridge the gap between two civilizations, then perhaps it was worth everything they might lose. But neither of them knew what. Challenges lay ahead. Neither of them understood how much would be required of them to prove that their bond was real. Neither of them could have predicted that the real test of their love was still to come. The alarms began to sound in the middle of the night. Ryan woke to a sound he had never heard before. On the station, red emergency lights flickered through his quarters. He dressed quickly and made his way toward the command center, where he could hear voices calling out urgent information. When he arrived, he found Chaos officers from both species were moving frantically, trying to understand what was happening. Kira was already there, dressed in her full military uniform, her face serious and focused. She saw Ryan enter, and their eyes met for just a moment before she turned back to the displays. Unknown fleet has entered the outer perimeter of our space. One of the Valorian officers announced. They do not respond to our hails. They are not registered with any known civilization. Their weapon signature is unlike anything in our database. The Valorian High Council appeared on the communication screen within minutes. Fear and concern were clear in their expressions. We are tracking the incoming ships, the council had said. There are at least 50 of them. Our scouts report that they are heavily armed. Initial analysis suggests that they are more technologically advanced than either our species or the humans. This is a direct threat to both the Valorian Empire and Earth. We need a military strategy immediately. Kira stepped forward. Sir, we have limited information about their intentions. We should attempt communication before engaging in combat, but our long-range sensors are showing that they are moving into attack formation. An officer replied, They may not give us time to communicate. Ryan moved toward the displays where Kira was standing. Let me look at their movement pattern, he said. Kira glanced at him, surprised by his presence, but she gestured for him to approach. Ryan studied the tactical information displayed on the screens. His mind worked quickly, pulling together everything he knew about strategy, about human military history, and about how different species might think differently about warfare. I see something, he said slowly. Look at how they are approaching. They are moving in a very organized formation, very calculated, very methodical, and is like they have done this many times before. They are following a pattern that assumes their opponent will retreat or surrender. That is a pattern of conquest, not desperate combat. What are you suggesting, Diplomat Mitchell? The council head asked. Ryan turned to the camera feed. I am suggesting that they expect us to be afraid. They expect us to try to run or to surrender immediately. But humans are not good at running, and we are not good at surrendering. We are good at adapting to impossible situations. We are good at finding solutions when there are no solutions. He pointed to the tactical display. I propose that we do something completely unexpected. We move toward them instead of a way we appear willing to fight, but we do it in a way that they will not anticipate. We use the environment of this space to our advantage. We use smaller, faster ships. We hit them hard and fast. We make them react to us instead of us reacting to them. Kira looked at Ryan with an expression that was difficult to read. She understood what he was suggesting, but more importantly, she understood that he was proposing something that no Valorian military commander would ever suggest. A Valorian way was to use superior numbers and technology to overwhelm opponents. It was not to adapt or improvise. It was not to use unpredictability as a weapon. The council members debated Ryan's strategy for what felt like hours. Some called it genius, others called it suicide. But as the enemy fleet drew closer and their intentions became clearer, options became limited. Finally, the council agreed to give Ryan's plan a chance. Kira was selected to lead the operation, partly because she had shown willingness to work with humans, and partly because her reputation was already damaged. So the council had less to lose if the plan failed. Ryan was not supposed to be part of the military operation. He was a diplomat, not a soldier, but as preparations began, he prepared himself anyway. He wanted to be there. He wanted to fight alongside Kira when she discovered him in the pilot preparation area. She did not tell him to leave. Instead, she simply gave him a headset and a frequencies. "Stay close to my ship," she said. "Try not to get yourself killed." The battle that followed was unlike anything either species had experienced. The Valorian fleet moved in unpredictable patterns, refusing to engage in the straightforward confrontation that the enemy expected. Smaller, faster ships darted in and out of combat zones. Ryan flew one of these smaller vessels, providing tactical information to Kira and adapting their strategy as the battle evolved. When the enemy tried to move left, the Valorian forces moved right. When they expected a defensive stance, they found themselves in an offensive one. The enemy commanders seemed confused and frustrated. They kept trying to force the battle into patterns they understood. But the Valorian military, under Kira's direction and influenced by Ryan's human perspective, refused to cooperate. After 3 hours of intense combat, the enemy fleet began to break apart. Ships were damaged. Commanders were confused and their confidence had been shaken. They did something that the Valorians had never seen. Before they withdrew, they retreated without surrendering. They fled the battle zone and disappeared back into space. The silence that followed the battle felt almost unreal across all the military channels. Valorians began to express their shock and amazement. What the humans had suggested had worked. What everyone said was impossible had actually succeeded. When Ryan returned to the command center, he found Kira already there. She was being congratulated by council members who had been her harshest critics just days before. But when she saw Ryan, she stepped away from the council members and approached him directly. "You saved us," she said. "You saved my people." Ryan shook his head. "We saved them together. That is what matters. We did it together." And that is exactly what the Valorian High Council realized as they watched the two species working in perfect harmony, as they saw human adaptability combined with Valorian technology and discipline. As they understood that everything they had believed about humans was wrong. Everything they had believed about what rank and station meant suddenly seemed far less important than what Ryan and Kira had just accomplished together. 3 weeks after the battle, the Valorian High Council called for a formal assembly. This time, the gathering was not held in secret chambers or in official hearing rooms. Instead, it was held in the Grand Hall where Ryan had made his declaration. The same space that had erupted in chaos, now filled with representatives from both species, all of them waiting to hear what the council would announce. Ryan stood beside Kira as they waited for the council to speak. She wore her military uniform, still bearing the fresh insignia of a hero of battle. He wore the formal human diplomatic suit, though it now carried a new meaning after what had happened. No one questioned his right to be there. The head council member stood and began to speak. "We have gathered today to address the matter of the alliance between our peoples and the connection that has formed between our commander and the human diplomat for many years. We have believed that strength comes from maintaining strict hierarchies and protocols. We believe that those of lower rank should know their place. We believed that cross-species relationships were beneath the dignity of Valorians of high standing." Paused and looked directly at Ryan and Kira. "But we have been proven wrong. The battle that saved both our civilizations was won not by our superior numbers or our advanced technology alone. It was won because a human understood something about strategy and adaptation that we had never learned. It was won because a commander was willing to trust in someone from another species. It was won because two people from different worlds chose to work together instead of remaining separated by protocol and tradition." The council member continued. "We I've heard reports of how the human diplomat moved through our fleet during combat. How he put himself in danger to help our soldiers. How he showed care not just for his own survival, but for the lives of Valorians he had never met. This is not the behavior of a lower species. This is the behavior of a being with honor and courage. This is the behavior of someone worthy of respect. The room was completely silent as the council member turned to face Ryan directly. Human diplomat, you have asked for something that violates every tradition we hold, but you have also shown us that sometimes traditions need to be changed. You have shown us that love and respect can be stronger than hierarchy and rank. Therefore, the Valorian High Council officially recognizes your union with Commander Kira not just as a personal relationship, but as a symbol of what can be achieved when two species work together with mutual respect. From this day forward, cross-species partnerships based on genuine connection and shared respect are not only permitted but celebrated in Valorian society. The applause that followed filled the entire hall. Valorian officials, who weeks before had been calling for the dissolution of the human alliance, now stood and cheered. The human delegation, which had been uncertain and divided, now unified in their support. Ryan looked at Kira and saw tears in her eyes. He took her hand and squeezed it gently. 6 months later, Ryan and Kira stood together on the highest observation deck of the station. Below them, a fleet of Valorian ships and human ships patrolled the outer perimeters of shared space. They had become a unified force, each species learning from the other. The Valorians have begun to embrace the human philosophy of adaptation and innovation. The humans had begun to understand the power of unity and discipline that the Valorians had mastered. Ryan had been promoted to the position of Chief Ambassador of Human Valorian Relations. Kira had been promoted to Supreme Commander of the combined fleet, but more importantly, they had become partners in every sense of the word. They were planning their future together, discussing the possibility of starting a family, of building something that would represent the peace between their peoples. I was thinking, Kira said, as they looked out at the stars, about what you said at that first dinner when you told everyone that you chose me because of who I am as a person. I did not believe that was possible. I thought you were being romantic, but not realistic. But then I saw how you fought in that battle, how you risked your life for my people, how you showed compassion and courage in equal measure. I understood then that you meant every word. You chose me because you saw strength in me. You chose me because you believed in what we could accomplish together. Ryan turned to face Harry. Still remember the moment I realized that I wanted you above anyone else. He said it was when I saw you studying those tactical reports at 3 in the morning. Your face was lit by the glow of the screens. You were concentrating so hard on solving a problem that affects your entire people. And I thought to myself that this was what love really was. It was not just attraction. It was admiration. It was respected. It was the desire to work alongside someone who makes you better. Kira smiled, and the expression transformed her entire face. You have changed my people. Ryan, you have shown us that strength does not mean remaining isolated behind walls of tradition. You have shown us that true power comes from connection, from understanding, from being willing to adapt and grow, and you have done it not through military force or conquest, but through your heart. As they stood together looking out at the infinite expanse of space, at the ships of two species working in perfect harmony, they understood that their choice had created something far greater than just a personal relationship. They had created a new future. They had proven that love could bridge any gap, overcome any obstacle, and change the course of history. And somewhere down on Earth, humans were celebrating. Somewhere in the Valorian Empire, citizens were rewriting their understanding of what it meant to be connected to another species. And on the station itself, young Valorians and young humans were becoming friends, beginning relationships, working together in ways that would have been unthinkable just months before. All of it had started with one human who looked at a brilliant commander and said, "I want you in one Valorian." who was brave enough to say yes.